So also want to thank again everyone for submitting these answers. Rebecca's about to drop in the chat. We went ahead and collected all of the answers to this question that you all put in here. And that way we could share this, and have this kind of be something that we keep in mind as we think about diversion programs too. But we're going to drop down the chat. Here are all the answers submitted in the registration for this answer to the question, how should we be supporting justice impacted youth and families? Okay, y'all. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. But if you just got here, please do drop your name, drop your organization, or what brought you here, and your pronouns. Okay, so I know I've said this a couple times, but I'm Mahal, she, her pronouns. I'm the chair of the Countywide Juvenile Justice Consortium, and myself and the fellow CJJC members are so excited to have you all here for the new Youth Justice Diversion Efforts in Memphis community conversation. And our center question that we are looking to answer is, how should we be supporting justice impacted youth and families? So before we jump into today, we want to start by sharing with you all, what is this? What is the CJJC? How does this all connect? So the CJJC, it started with an investigation by the Department of Justice into Shelby County and the juvenile justice system here. And in that investigation, there were some things that were discovered. It was discovered that we need more effective and equitable and restorative juvenile justice system or youth justice system. We need more transparency for all of those in the justice system. And we need a system that there's issues with everyone not being treated justly, respectfully, and equitably, especially around racial justice. So those were the findings in 2012. Those findings led to a memorandum of agreement between the Shelby County Juvenile Court and the Department of Justice. And one of the things that was included in that agreement was that they would create a non-paid citizen-led board that will hold the Shelby County youth justice system more accountable and provide more transparency to the community. So that's how the CJJC started. Now, in 2018, there was a request made for the Department of Justice to leave Shelby County, although not all of the benchmarks of the issues that were found were reached. So that happened in 2018, and the Department of Justice did leave Shelby County. So then it became, what is the CJJC? Is it going to continue? In 2019, under Mayor Lee Harris's leadership, it was decided for the CJJC to continue and provide transparency and accountability to our juvenile justice system. I'm going to pass it to co-chair Jennifer to explain how does that tie to the CJJC.
Great, thanks, Mahal. So for the CJJC, we have 5 main goals or purposes of our organization. And the first one is to collect experiences and concerns from people directly impacted by the juvenile justice system. And so for us, the way that we do this is we try to hold public meetings at least 2 times a year about youth justice issues and experience, and in order to gather feedback from families and youth that are directly impacted by the system. Our second main activity is to host meetings with the juvenile court judge and the sheriff in order to share experiences from our conversations that we've had with community members and youth and family. And this means that we have to document the current practices and policies in the youth justice system, and also analyze the patterns and trends in that data. If you all have heard recently, we presented to the Shelby County Board of Commissioners because we've had some issues being able to do this, but it is part of our charge. The third thing is to make recommendations to elected officials based on the data that we gather. And as I just mentioned, we presented to the county or the Shelby County Board of Commissioners earlier this year, or this fall, so just a couple months ago. And they agreed with us that there are issues around transparency at juvenile court. And so I'll speak in a couple slides a little bit more as to the results to that, which we're pretty excited about. And then we have 4 main goals, and that is to create greater diverse community oversight, analyze or analysis of local data trends that put youth at risk, to provide assessment of resource gaps that affect youth and families, and then to hopefully help build stronger partnerships with community leaders for positive policy shifts in the youth justice system. And then finally, we work to help select new members of the CJJC. So as Mahal mentioned, this is an elected board. And so we put forth recommendations for individuals that we hope can join us in these efforts. I will pass it back now to Mahal.
So that's our charge. Here's what we've done. In order to create more transparency to the youth justice system, we created a video. Rebecca's going to drop that link in the chat for y'all. This video breaks down, it was created with youth who have been in the justice system here in Memphis to break down exactly how does the youth justice system work from the beginning to the end. So created this. We also began gathering insight from youth who have been in the justice system, from their family, and from service providers. And we created that into a report in 2019 that we released with lots of insight from those folks on what is happening and what they would like to see happen in our youth justice system. And then as I'm gonna pass it back to Jennifer for this one. This was our most recent big win.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more information around the report that we put together based on research that we did all summer and conversations that we've had with individuals kind of across Memphis around information or data that other individuals have been able to gather from the courts and the sheriff's office. And we ended up not having much updated information. So we went back into the DOJ original reports and tried to gather and piece together the best that we could, sort of where things were left when the DOJ left in 2018, and what we know based on just information that we've been able to piece together where the court and the sheriff's office are. And so based on all of that research, we came to 3 final conclusions. And those final conclusions were to request that the DOJ come back in order to conduct a new evaluation, in order to examine the juvenile court's progress, identify remaining challenges from that original memorandum of agreement that we know weren't completed when the DOJ left in 2018, and then to provide support and assistance to help address those challenges. So we just sent off our letters to the Board of Commissioners, and so the ball is now in their court, and we are hopeful that our formal request will be sent to the DOJ soon. And we're optimistic that the DOJ will come back. And so our hope is that we will be able to work with them in order to increase transparency at the court and to gain better insight in order to share out with the community. Back to you, Mahal.
Thank you. Okay, y'all, so that leads us to today. So we just had that big win, super excited about it. And now the question is, what do we do next? We've gotten a lot of feedback from the community that the direction that people are really interested is youth justice diversion. So in order to move into there, that leads us to our goals for today. So this meeting was created out of that ask. It was created.
So cute.
It was created in order for us to, 1, get clarity on the current effort to support youth, to support justice impacted youth through the Youth and Family Resource Center. This is a recent effort that just came about, that is happening now to try to divert young people. 2 is hear insights from justice-involved youth and families around the Youth and Family Resource Center. We're very excited to have the Youth Justice Action Council joining us today, who's going to be sharing their recommendations. And then finally is to begin the building of dialogue on how best we can move forward collectively and the role of the CJJC to support diversion efforts in Memphis. So that's our goals. Here's our agenda. Next up, we're going to do a community agreement. From there, we will move into just looking at who's here in this room today. There's a lot of folks here. And then we'll move into the presentations. We will first hear from the source. We'll hear from the source about what is currently happening. And then from there, thank you. And then from there, we'll move to hearing from the Youth Justice Action Council and centering the voices of justice impacted youth. Finally, we'll have questions. We'll move into next steps, and then we'll move into closing. So that's our plan. I'm now going to pass it to Zara I'm sorry. I'm now going to do a quick, who's in the room. So y'all, thank you for filling out that poll. If you haven't filled that out yet and you just got here, welcome. Please fill it out now.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's good. And y'all, if you could please mute during this time, if at all possible. Thank you. Okay. So want to kind of name who's in the room. And I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, who's in the room? So we have 24 young people in the room who identify as youth. We have 29 adults, maybe a couple more because not everyone's filled it out. We have currently or have worked in diversion program. We have 11 folks. We have 28 folks who currently or have worked with youth. We have 18 advocates around youth justice reform. We have 6 folks who have been in the justice system. We have 17 folks who have family who have been in the youth justice system. We have 25 folks who are currently or would like to work around supporting the efforts, supporting justice-involved youth. And then we have 11 parents on this call. So we have a pretty wide range. So thank you all so much for being here and for being a part of this dialogue. In order to set us off on the right foot, given all the different voices, all the different folks at the table, we want to start with a community agreement. So I'm going to pass it to Zara for that.
Good afternoon, everyone, or evening, actually evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zara. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm a member of the CJJC and the YJAC as well. So like Mahal said, we want to start off on the right foot and make sure that everyone comes into this space feeling included and welcome to share their opinions and ideas, which is why we want to start off with the community agreement. So we have 5 main points. So the first one is centering and validating people's experience. We recognize we have a diverse group of people here, and we want to recognize everyone for that. And then next, we have be intentional about our language. So one of the main points is refer to youth as youth, not juvenile or kids. It can be dehumanizing, or young people can see that as putting young people down. And so we'd really like to use respectful language so that everybody feels included and accepted in the space. Next is put people first. We recognize that people can have differing opinions, but we want to recognize the humanity in one another. Next is everyone here has something to learn and teach others in the space. So recognize that, everyone based on your experiences has something to teach others, because we all have different points of view and perspectives, and learn from one another because we don't know everything. And then the last one is recognize your privilege, whether that be your privilege as an adult or privilege based on your race or gender or socioeconomic status. Just be mindful of your privilege and how it might play into power dynamics. And I'll pass it back to Mahal. I think you're mute, Mahal.
Thank you. This is our community agreement. We created this with between YJAC, the young people coming on the call, as well as us, and are hoping that everyone here can agree to uphold these in this space. So if you can agree to that, if you're down with this, if you could just either say, put some exclamation marks in the chat or give me a thumbs up, whatever works best for you. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you for all those exclamation marks. Yes, awesome. Okay, y'all. So with that, we're about to start into the presentations, which is I'm really excited about. Before we get started, just wanted to let you know you will have questions, of course. Our hope is for you to drop those in the chat. When you have them, immediately drop them in the chat. What we are going to do is be tracking those questions, writing them down. And when we get to the question and answers part, which will be after both presentations, we're going to kind of read through those questions and make sure they all get asked. Okay. One thing just to name, and if we can't get to all of them, I know YJAC and has agreed to look through and help answer any questions that we don't get to. Okay. So they will not be answered. They won't be necessarily stopping their presentation to answer those in the moment. They will answer them at the end. But please drop those questions in the chat as they come up. So with that said, y'all, we are now moving into finding out from the source what's currently going on. And I'm going to pass it, and I'm going to pass it to Jennifer to introduce these folks. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing screen.
So we are lucky tonight to have the new director of the Family Youth Assessment or Resource Center here to share with us this evening what their plans are for this new resource center. And so without any further ado, I will go ahead and pass it on.
Awesome. So we're going to, and actually there's a slight change. Actually, Pamela, who is over that role, is going to be speaking. So Pamela, or should I say Ms. Kelly? I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, I'm sorry. I thought I had a little bit more time. So I want to share with you all something about the Youth and Family Resource Center. I understand that there was a tour of the center, and as you know, there has been a change since that time. The purpose of the Youth and Family Resource Center is to provide the resources for the youth, provide resources for the family, so that we can divert them from any interactions with the police, or if they've had that interaction, to try to limit it at that point. I understand that the body did meet with the former manager a few weeks ago. And as you know, she did resign from that position. So what we are doing at this point is that we're trying to keep the train moving. And we're also looking for staff to run the center. I am the excuse me, I am the administrator for the Office of Justice Initiatives, and my part is to really come up with community intervention programs. Well, not come up with, but to manage those intervention programs. There are about 3 or 4 of them that the county currently has. And this particular center falls under my purview of oversight. So our immediate things, we need to get it staffed. We are trying to get it open to see our first client by this month. I don't know if that's going to happen. It may be January before that is done. We are currently looking for people to offer contracted services to us or to actually apply for the position. And it is something that is, I just want to say this is a lot of work because we are building this from the ground up. There is no master plan. There is no blueprint. This is something that Shelby County has been working on out here for several years. And we are really closer than we've ever been to get this center open. So I think if there's a specific question, I would rather take it now than to just keep talking about it. But I don't know if I can answer a lot of your questions because again, right now, we are back at, I don't want to say ground zero, but we are taking a few steps back as we try to get personnel hired. Are there policies in place? Those policies are being developed. They were in the midst of being developed. However, again, that was the responsibility of the program manager who is no longer with us. Currently, everything is on my desk. I have my own duties, and this one is also a duty that I am undertaking. The positions that will be available, of course, are the program manager, case managers, and an administrative intake person to support the program manager. There are no job descriptions open at this time. If anyone has an interest in the position, they can email me directly to go ahead and submit your resume. However, when the jobs post, you will have to apply through Shelby County government. When would those positions post? We're unsure at this point. We're trying to get them posted. They have to be written and they have to be approved and then they have to be posted. So that is a process. I was talking to some of my staff about it today, and we are diligently trying to get things done this month, but it may be January. We also face deadlines for Shelby County government as well about deadlines within HR. And we are not sure that we can meet all of the different cutoffs in the midst of this holiday season.
Are there any last questions for Pamela before we move to the next part? Or Jennifer, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Are you all open to having feedback and recommendations at this point, since it feels like things are still really in flux? So if there are things this evening that you hear from our youth that could be quite impactful, are you all interested and willing to have a conversation after this meeting in order to talk about how maybe some of these ideas could be integrated?
I think we are interested in the conversation, but outside of that, I guess I can't promise more than that we are interested in the conversation. I did review the recommendations that did come from the body. However, some of those things are just beyond what we can promise. I mean, there are a lot of different parties that are interested in this center and how it operates. For example, currently we are waiting for input from Memphis Police Department. They have been slammed with so much activity in the community that our requests, of course, and rightfully so, have to take a back seat to what their primary duty is. And so all of those things affect how quickly we are also able to open and what we can do. But we are open to what people think might make the center an effective place. I will say though that the center, well, let me say this, let me go back. And I don't know if everyone has seen that. Some of what I read seems to paint the center in a way that may not be what is envisioned by several parties in Shelby County. For example, while youth will be referred to the Center for Support, some youth will be referred to the center to avoid juvenile court. And those youth will have come into the contact of MPD because they have committed one of 13 delinquent acts. So outside of that, there may be self-referral or there may be other things that the family needs that the center will try to provide. How will the youth be brought to the center? The youth at this point will have to get to the center on their own. There will be no transportation from MPD. Will that cause a hardship? It may, but we are also operating under a very tight budget and a tight staff. And how are we going to keep staffing available to meet the needs of youth and their families. And I hope, Mr. Powell, that I answered your question about how it relates to law enforcement and to juvenile court. How many people has the center helped so far? No one. There is no staff in place to help anyone at this point.
Well, Pamela, thank you so much for answering these questions. If anyone else thinks of any more, please drop them in the chat and we will make sure to maybe come back to those because you might think of another one as we go. And Pamela, thank you again so much for being here and sharing what's going on. Yeah, so just to give a little bit of context, y'all, so before this meeting, YJAC had a chance to go and actually view the center, meet with the former manager there. However, that manager has now left. That manager, when they did meet with YJAC, named out what are the things that she would love feedback on. And YJAC took it on to truly go through and think what would be ideal, not what would be ideal for like if you're on a small budget, but what would truly make a difference for justice impacted youth in our community and what could actually help stop be a truly effective diversion program. So y'all, I'm very excited to introduce y'all. I'm just gonna share my screen really quick to the Youth Justice Action Council, who is gonna be presenting to y'all today with what they think would be the most effective diversion program for youth in Memphis. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Brianna.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm going to be discussing who are we. We are a group of justice impact connecting youth from across the Memphis area who want to make positive change in the Shelby County youth justice system. We're carrying down a system and building a new system for the youth who have been impacted by the system. Our long-term goal for YJAC is to dismantle the Shelby County Youth Detention Center and providing a focus for the community. And I'm going to pass it to Adekunle.
Hello, my name is Adekunle Ajayi, and I'm also a part of YJAC. You may just be thinking, are these just the thoughts of from 13 youth, but they are not. And here are all the steps that led to the creation of these recommendations. We first started working alongside a professor and graduate student from University of Memphis, alongside with Bridges USA evaluation manager, to analyze data regarding justice impacted youth and families accumulated from 2014 to 2021. After receiving training from the University of Memphis, YJAC members also conducted interviews and focus groups were conducted with the youth and families that have been impacted by the youth justice system. After that, we wrote a research report. Our analysts revealed that the experience of youth justice impacted in detention centers has not changed from 2014 to 2021. And our youth justice system is a space where youth are criminalized and traumatized. After that, we got educated on what Memphis is currently doing through online research and meeting with people who have been involved with the youth justice reform efforts and the Youth and Family Resource Center, including the former manager, Renee Milton, and Dr. Cedric Gray. We went on a tour with the Youth and Family Resource Center from manager Renee Milton and Dr. Cedric Gray, and gathered specific questions, areas of youth input that the center was hoping for insight on. After the tour, we conducted extensive research on diversion programs and best practices from across the country. Want to see some of our favorites? Check out the best practice diversion programs that we're impressed with. Then we went on to have transformative dialogues with Youth Justice Connected and youth and family members, as well as adults working from youth justice reform, and asked what they thought could make a difference. This brings us to now. We came together as YJAC to achieve consensus on these recommendations that would be presented today. And now we'll pass it to Alana.
Thank you, Adekunle. Hi, everyone. My name is Alana Reese Walker. I use she, they pronouns. I'm looking forward to introducing the recommendations for Raleigh's new Diversion Program Center. We want to make it clear that this is a space opposite of one that locks you up. It's a space that gives you the keys, a space of possibilities. This inspired our name recommendation, which is the keys. We created whys for the name. We want the center to be a space that invites people in, creating a less intimidating presence. This is a center for, by, and with the community to create a more equitable environment between youth and adults, meet the needs of people now, and set a theme of unlocking, separating itself from the current system. To create this equitable space between youth and adults and throughout the community, there are some key steps. There should be a community agreement added to the space created by both youth and adult. Throughout this decision-making process, everyone needs to be involved. Hiring youth and justice-connected community members would be essential. Within the framing of the diversion program, the look is important. And if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. We want to make sure that the community has a chance to put input on what the center looks like. Through our discussions, we've created a list of do's and don'ts for the center. We suggest not having harsh LED lighting, hard and uncomfortable furniture, windowless rooms, or white or blank walls. But we suggest having a chalk and graffiti wall that could list daily affirmations or shout outs to appreciate community members, which could serve as parts allocated to youth to decorate. Color accents and paints that are more colorful, so bringing in a lot more color and just making it a warmer area. More comfortable seating such as bean bags, a home-like feeling using warm colors and allowing youth to bring certain personal items. Also having soothing lighting. We want to have a wardrobe accessible to youth. People don't always have the opportunity to buy clothes considered professional. For example, if someone doesn't have the clothes that would be considered professional specifically for a job interview, they would have the option to use that wardrobe at the center. And also including activity rooms that are interactive between youth and adults to create that equitable feel. And then if we could go to the next slide. So on the left are examples of kind of the don'ts with like harsh lighting and things that could resemble detention centers. And on the right was an example of the chalk wall that youth can write out the affirmations and shout outs. And I'll pass it to Bobby.
Hello, my name is Bobby Williams, and I'm presenting the logistics section of our YJAC presentation. Jumping right in, I want to discuss the hours of operation for the center. We want the center to operate under a 24/7 timeframe to make it accessible for youth no matter the time. We know that might be a bit of a stretch, so we're also advocating for at least a 24/7 hotline available for youth who might need assistance or guidance throughout the day. For the personnel on site, we want a variety of resources, including community mentors, social workers, therapists, lawyers, youth advocates, hotline responders, trauma-controlled staff, and so forth and so on to maximize the youth use and impact of the center. The procedure on how we want the youth to arrive is fairly simple. We ask that a youth community-based staff member welcome the youth and get them oriented and familiar to the space and support them through their orientation. They would have a resource and self-care room that they can use to make sure that they get situated and comfortable. And we are also pushing for transportation to the center if the youth needs it to increase accessibility, and that's something that I will elaborate on further. For the hotline, we want it to be 24 hours, trained staff, law enforcement encounters, and so on, and so forth and so on. And for the transportation, we want non-school-like, non-jail-like buses that transport larger groups of youth from the school to the center. For the actual mechanisms and the ways that the youth can arrive to the center, one, we want after youth are given a summons by the police, they have the option of coming to the center to have their summons annulled. Details and procedures should be thoroughly explained to the youth. Youth given detentions by the school should have the option of coming to the center to have their detention annulled. During suspension, ISS or OSS, youth are given the opportunity to come to the center. Community businesses, youth programs, and organizations have the option of having a notification sent to the youth who have done something to harm the space or the community. The youth can't come back until they have checked in with the center, and the center will give them a note to bring back to the organization. Youth staff members create social media and events like job fairs, block parties, open mics that attract youth and families to the center. Guidance counselors should also know about the center and the activities and help that involve the youth in the center. Advertisements should be shared in schools for the different involvement opportunities that can be in the future. Advertisements should also target guardians with flyers in the grocery store, jobs, community hangouts, mailboxes, and etc. Mechanisms for getting feedback and strengthening the center. When youth leave, they are partnered with a youth staff member who will ask for their feedback that will be confidential and will help make sure they raise any concerns and all the concerns are addressed. Youth staff members will also let them know about the anonymous ways to give feedbacks, like a box in the corner or an online form. For guardians, any adult community-based staff member could do the same. And now I will pass it on to Zara.
Thank you, Bobby. I'll be covering staff criteria and training requirements. So as for the hiring criteria, we believe that staff should be hired with input from the community, which allows for equity in the hiring process and for the community to begin taking ownership of the space. In addition, we believe that adults who are hired should see their roles as supporting youth and not controlling them. We want adults to take on the role of facilitation and not authority so that youth feel comfortable engaging with staff at the center. Employment should also be focused on involving previously incarcerated individuals or anyone impacted by the justice system, as they will be better equipped to act as mentors and facilitators. As for required trainings, we believe that adults and the staff should be trained in how to interact with youth and have knowledge on youth brain development, such as ACE awareness trainings, to encourage trauma-informed interactions between youth and staff. We also believe that the training required should include youth and adult equity trainings, which Bridges already has curriculum in, and diversity and equity and inclusion trainings so that the staff are aware of power dynamics and the privileges they bring into the space. We'd also like training on how to facilitate versus how to lecture or teach, because we want this space to not feel like school. We want it to feel more open and interactive so that young people can make the most of their time at the center. We'd also like the training to handle resource allocation so that adults know which resource would be best allocated to which individual. And in addition, retraining every 6 months and a living wage for at least $15 minimum an hour. And I'll be passing it to Selena.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name's Selena Shamsuddin. My pronouns are she, her. So I'll just get right started. Our goal as the YJAC is to protect and harness the voices of every youth member in the community. When youth encounter law enforcement, the officers may briefly state their rights, but training such as Know Your Rights can aid them in understanding and harnessing the power held within the constitutional liberties, so they are able to stand up for themselves and de-escalate the situation. Growing up, my Black and brown friends were approached very differently by the cops and the white people in our community. These trainings could make the community aware that privilege will never overpower the dignity and liberty of any man, because we are all entitled to the same rights, no matter our race, color, gender, or beliefs. If the youth do not understand their strengths, they can easily suffice their power and fear. We will create safety procedures that de-escalate the situation and involve the expertise of lawyers along with the experiences of community members to form these trainings. Next, I'm going to be talking about some business programming that I think and the YJAC thing should be implemented in the center. Incarcerated youth are charged for living at the detention centers, and many times they are unable to pay off these debts due to their socioeconomic background. Furthermore, if they are in need of any general resources, they may not be able to afford them, such as food, school supplies, or school fees. Our goal is not to give them money, but to make them more independent, as this will make change more sustainable. The program sponsored by the center would fulfill experiences that are more interest-based rather than ineffective trainings that form a hierarchical environment. We have researched effective business-focused programs such as the LIGHT program, which supports young entrepreneurs trying to start and grow their business by providing them with money and expertise. Our goal as the YJAC is to ensure that every member of this center leaves with more power and strength than ever before. Lastly, I'm going to be talking about the survivorship support circles that I also think should be implemented in the center along with the rest of YJACs. Survivor support programs are identity-based restorative programs that are open to all individuals, including victims of sexual harassment, assault, or incarceration. The YJAC would involve groups such as MASHA to facilitate and provide support for the community members. These support circles are vital for the center because they give individuals an opportunity to express themselves and share experiences in a safe place where there is absolutely no judgment. The support circles can create a healing experience that makes people aware that they are not alone and that healing is not linear. These strengthening groups are for, with, and by the community and gives individuals the opportunity to build a family of support system. We must join hands as group power is much stronger than one individual voice. If there are any questions or if anyone wants to see more programs, they're listed in this presentation that we will be sharing with you. And now I will be passing it to Azaria.
Thanks, Selena, and good evening to you all. I'm Azaria. I use she, her pronouns, and I will be discussing the rooms in the center. First and foremost, I want to start off by saying how passionate I am about this work. We want this center to feel like a place where you can call home, and what better way to provide that homey feeling to the youth than something that will be symbolic to them. The lock wall symbolizes the key to our hearts and will serve as a reminder to the youth of their time spent here. We also want the youth to leave with more knowledge than they came, so having a graffiti wall will help the youth explore their artistic talents. The wall will provide them with an opportunity to express themselves. We want this center to be a safe space for the youth, which is why we recommend this center to have a resource room that includes a washer and dryer, clothes, food, pantry, hygiene items, female products, and shower rooms. We are the future, and education is important to our success. So we believe educational resources are important, such as pop-up libraries and college tutors. Not only is education important, but mental health is essential to accomplishing our goals at the center, and we want the youth to know that we care about them mentally. Therefore, we recommend a self-care room. Last but not least, we understand that things happen, and we want the youth to know that no matter what they're going through, we are here to help. An emergency room should be implemented if the youth needs emergency housing. Now I will pass it to Tydre for organization.
Good afternoon. My name is Tydre McKenzie. I use he, him pronouns, and today I will be going over the organizations and groups to partner with. And first, I would like to start with the two that I'm most passionate about, which would be Project Stand and Memphis Athletic Ministries. I'm excited about us partnering with Project Stand because Project Stand is a mentoring group that is focused on occupying the young youth's brain. And also it keeps them out of trouble while instilling into them that they are our future, because it's very important for our youth to know that they are our future. And this also, Project Stand also lets them know that they have a value. And its aim to create centralized community emphasizing student activism in marginalized communities, meaning that they try their best to be big on letting the youth know that they are our future, and without them, we have no future. And I would also like to partner with MAM, which is Memphis Athletic Ministries, because they have been around since 1998, which means they could bring a lot of help and a lot of more organizations that we may not even know about to help us. Also, Memphis Athletic Ministries is just like Project Stand. It's a mentoring group, but it's done through coaching and spiritual activities. So, say for instance, if somebody in youth they feel like they have nothing to live for, or they have no hope, or they have no faith, even if they don't like sports. Like some kids like me, myself, I only like baseball. Other than that, I don't like any sports. Those kids might need a person to pray to or something like that. And that's what Memphis Athletic Ministries is for, because if they don't like sports, they'll try to lead them in a spiritual way out of trouble. Also, a couple of more groups that we will be partnering with will be the Tennessee Prison Books Project, which they are dedicated to connecting people outside of prisons to incarcerated people through sharing books. And also we will be partnering with MASHA, Memphis Against Sexual Harassment and Assault. A couple of other groups that we will be partnering with would be the Memphis Crisis Line, the BSE, which would be the Brave, Safe, and Educated. Also, we will partner with the Youth Action Center and the Shelby County Disciplinary Office. That's all. I'll be passing it to Milana.
Thank you, Tydre. I'm Milana Kumar. I use any pronouns, and I will be sharing some of the best practices we think should be included in this new resource center. And of course, any other centers to follow the building of this one. The Lotus program, which is a practice adopted by the New Beginnings Youth Development Center, is a 6-phase level system, which is based on 6 domains of positive youth justice. These phases include safety and structure, self-awareness, independence and autonomy, mastery and competency, belonging, membership, and self-knowledge. So it places a very strong emphasis on self-exploration as opposed to the traditional outward view. I believe the credible messenger model was mentioned or shown earlier, but in more detail, it's based on the core belief that communities already have transformative resources within them to lift up justice-involved people in a comprehensive and positive way. And they really prioritize the development of relationships between previously incarcerated people and current justice-involved or impacted youth. As far as youth and adult equity goes, in any space, it's important for young people and adults to share full commitment and agency, let alone a space built specifically for youth justice. And with the foundation laid by current detention centers, the importance of restorative structures created with the intention of facilitation rather than authority cannot be stressed enough. The final one I'll be sharing is identity-based circles, which I think were also mentioned previously. And those are specifically structured to help develop relationships between justice impacted youth on the basis of similar experiences and identities. Before I pass it on, I really want to emphasize that these are all existing practices. There's no creation involved for those involved in the building of the center. All you have to do is reach out and take it for this new place. There are, of course, plenty more practices I'd like to share, but with the time limit I have, I will now pass it to Crystal.
Thank you, Milana. I'm Crystal Aceja. I use they, them pronouns, and I will be talking about next steps for the center. Focusing on the decision makers of the Raleigh Center, I think it is imperative that you listen to the recommendations that we are giving. If not, you will be perpetuating the same oppressive system that has kept youth down. Historically, youth have been ignored and mistreated under the care of the juvenile system. As YJAC, we will continue to give resources as the center progresses. We would like a follow-up meeting going through our recommendations to identify what can be done in the short term and long term. We would also like to be a part of the process for picking a new manager. As a first step, we would like to discuss with you all on how to work as a team to hire community-based youth and community members to help guide the center. It is important to include the community in the center to make it a safe space for youth in the community. Now I want to center the people in positions of power in our current youth justice system. Our ask for you is that you consider our vision of creating an alternative to current punitive systems and build effective models that center youth voice and support justice impacted individuals in our community. I now want to call to action the youth justice reform advocates and organizers. As YJAC, our ask for you is to incorporate our recommendations into what you are advocating for in the future. If you have any questions, you can contact us at 901yjac@gmail.com. We want a seat at the table for all youth justice focused conversations and tables. This semester, we are looking to get involved with current youth justice reform efforts in order to build a coalition of youth and adults who can work together towards transforming our juvenile justice system. This can and will ensure that the youth voice is centered. We have a form that you can fill out if you are interested that will be dropped in the chat. Now I want to shift the attention to the people who may be on the fence about our recommendations. We ask that you take a look at our report and our recommendations so that you can develop a personal opinion. We would also be willing to talk to you if you would like. We understand that you may have insight that we may not have, but we also have insight from personal experiences that you may not have. So it is important to at least hear us out and give us a chance. Our email is 901yjac@gmail.com, and we have a website that has more information in our social media. Now shifting the focus to everyone, you should follow us on our social media. We plan to post important things about our current work and open opportunities to be involved. We will be looking for more applicants for YJAC in April. So if you know any justice impacted, connected, or interested high school youth, there is a form that you can fill out for the youth that may be interested so we can give them an application. Thank you for holding an open space for me to speak. I will now be passing it to Mahal.
Awesome, welcome everyone. Y'all, can we just give them a huge round of applause really quick? Y'all, thank you so much for sharing your insight and knowledge with us. I know you mentioned some things at the very end there, Crystal. If you could just drop those in the chat, just want to make sure everyone has access to each of those. And just to name, I also got something saying that you need permission. We'll make sure to fix that before the end of the meeting. Okay. But with that said, y'all, one is I want to just take a moment and thank Mayor Lee Harris for joining us for this call and hearing these recommendations. So thank you so much for being here, Mayor Lee Harris. And I'd also like to pass it to Cardell, who's going to kind of lead us in the question and answers.
Just make sure. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. So there were a few questions that came up in the chat that I pulled up that I wanted to run through so we make sure we didn't miss those. There was a question about when will the center actually be opened up? And I'm not sure if Ms. Kelly wants to say something about that, but I'm not sure there's a current set date right now. Pam, is that something you wanted to address?
Okay, I'm sorry. I cannot give a date except to say that we are working on it. Until we get staff, it cannot open.
Great. There's the answer. And there were a few other questions. We'll forward those that were specifically about this. There was a question I know the youth, I think, considered that was about, can this be a part of the employee youth program as staff are hired so the youth could be a part of the policy and setup? And so I think this is saying for the summer jobs program, the city summer job programs, the employee program, the county has a summer jobs, I believe. So would you all find it acceptable that those are summer programs that could be connected with this to have an opportunity for youth to work at the center or around this area?
Those are questions that I really cannot answer at this time until a program manager and staff have been hired and can help develop what the center will look like. Anything that I say in advance of that is not a wise thing to say.
Oh no, I appreciate that. I was actually sending that over to the youth. I figured
great.
You didn't want to answer.
Wonderful.
I was going to let the youth answer if they thought that that was an acceptable suggestion or opportunity.
So I think that we were talking about the employment of previously incarcerated individuals, and I think this goes hand in hand with that. If we do need a project or staffing manager, that could go hand in hand with employing someone who has had previous experience in the justice system. So I think this just leaves a perfect opportunity for that, if that could be considered. And then along with that, if anyone else wants to talk about how we can get the youth more involved.
You throwing that to one of the other young people to answer? Somebody wanted to answer about young people involved? Anybody else want to pick that up? Okay. Let's go to another question. Fred asked if there's an estimated cost of fully operational program. And so I'm going to ask the youth if there's any ideas that they have on what they think it would cost. And maybe Pam can say if there's a current budget that is set aside for the center.
We were actually awaiting, YJAC was actually waiting for feedback on our recommendations to see if there was a budget or any allotted money that we can spend on these programs. So that's not a question we could answer currently, I don't believe.
Great, thanks, Bobby. Is there a current budget that's set out that has to be worked within? And there was another question, I believe, earlier as well about the verbal support from the county commission, but that this is woefully underfunded. And I know that Pam doesn't want to answer that, but she might be able to answer if there's a current budget. And then we could talk about advocacy that might occur as well.
There is a current budget for the YFRC, and that budget encompasses so many things. It is just not about salaries, it's about security for the center. Budget was expended to get the furniture that is already in the center, the technology, the Wi-Fi, the cable. I mean, the budget is covering all of those things. I did see a question about how are we looking for people and we haven't posted the jobs. That is because we are already seeking people by word of mouth to let people know that the posting will come. So people can now start passing the word that there is an opening. So we are being, we're not just waiting, but we are trying to put the word out now that there are openings at the center. I want the audience to understand that the former manager was in the position for only 2 months. So certain things were accomplished, but there are still a lot of things that were not handled during those 2 months. If you want to inquire about the openings, you can send an email to me if you want to get, just to get a listing of the openings. But I'm just being honest, we don't have the job descriptions up. I think a question came, well, do we need help with it? It's not as simple as do we need help with job descriptions? It is a matter of trying to balance all the things that we have to do in addition to now going back to make sure that we don't, to make sure that we also handle the positions and the job of the center. And that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're doing.
Can I ask, if there is there a current operating budget that is expected for the rest of this fiscal year?
There is an operating budget for.
Can you share what the amount of the operating
how
budget
much it is? I would have to go back and look. I don't have those figures in front of me. I was not hired to originally run this center. So I am digging in now, trying to get up to speed on things myself that have to be completed. So that's what we're doing. If I had to guess, it's 6 figures. It might be 400,000, but I'm not sure of those exact amounts. I can tell you we spent a lot of money on the renovation of that building.
So and I believe that there was a number at some point that was about $500,000. Like how much of that remains or how much of that has been spent or with the operating budget? That's something that we could circle back around with and get an answer to, right? We're not gonna put you on the spot now. Even though I just did.
Well, yeah, you did, but I can't, I'm gonna quickly say, I'm not gonna guess at those kind of things. I don't know.
No, I'm saying it's something that we could circle back around to.
Yes,
and find out the information once after this meeting, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where we're at. Okay. Let me keep moving through some of the questions. I think I saw another one. Is there a suggestion of having any professional staff or just youth mentoring youths? So right now, Pam, I know we're not talking about what you all are planning right now. So I'm gonna push these questions over to the youth and kind of what they had anticipated. So a question of what kind of professional staff might be there, what kind of adult staff might be there, and if you all have envisioned professional adult staff being there in addition to youth or just youth mentoring. Who's got an answer for me?
In my part of the logistics presentation, for some of the adults, we wanted community mentors, social workers, therapists, lawyers, youth advocates. And for some of the programs that Selena mentioned that were actually youth-based, I'll turn it over to her for her to explain the youth-based. But those are what some of the adults and some of the adults that we wanted to be in the space in the center.
Great.
And I believe Cardell that some of the adult mentors that should be there should be adults who have actually been in the system or incarcerated in times of their youth ages as well. So some basically adults who have something in common with the youth that will be there.
Yeah, so going back to what Bobby said and Tydre said, a lot of the programs aren't just fully based on funding, and they don't require as much funding as we think they do, but just the community support, such as like the survivorship circles that should be implemented in these programs. And also, I feel like the youth should have a voice in the selection process. And I know that's a difficult ask, but the youth voice should be represented, and that's the selection of the employment is a big part that the youth should have a voice in.
And to piggyback off what she said, with like as well as the organizations, because I'm looking right here and like we spoke about with Project Stand and MAM, those are some of the groups that show us that it doesn't take as much funding, because like Project Stand, they get paid a school salary. They're teachers, they get paid to teach, but they stay after school and still deal with youth because of how much they love youth. And our thing is that it shouldn't be a cost on it if you want to see better in the youth's life. So what I'm saying here is that some mentors don't care about the cost at all. They just want to see better for the youth.
Great answers. So there's another question about what should the role of youth be in hiring the new manager? Or should there be a role? And if so, why is that? Why might that be important? Did I get the question? But I need to call on somebody.
I think that I think youth should be involved in hiring, because the person that gets hired is going to be working with youth. And so just like when you're in the workplace, when you want other employees to take part of like the interview process or hiring process so they know how well they work with them, I think it's important to have, when these staff or managers are hired, to have them interact with the community and youth so that we get a better understanding of who's the best fit. So I think that it's a matter of equity and best fit and making sure that the space is very welcoming and inclusive.
Just emphasizing what Zara said about it not only being this current manager, but any other staff involved with the center, having youth maybe give their input on a set of criteria rather than each individual staff member being hired would be easier, as long as that input is allowed and accepted.
Great. And I just wanted to lay out if there was somebody who couldn't put their question in the chat and wanted to come off of mute and ask a question of the youth. Just wanted to open up space for that in case we got some folks who aren't in the chat.
Hi, this is Tamika. I actually just chatted something in response to what the student said. I'm asking about the position of like therapists. Can it be open to like online channels or virtual channels like Better Health in order to fulfill that need? Because I guess like we're thinking about staffing the positions like in person, but sometimes like with the things that we've actually had to come across can be done virtually to kind of help, I guess, take on some of that flux that will be coming once it's open.
So this, I think I can answer, and I don't think Dr. Gray is here, but I think Dr. Gray has been working on a youth mental health component along with our children, youth, and nonprofit committee at the county. And so one of the goals of that group is to have virtual mental health stations. And at least one of those is planned, as far as I understand it, to be stationed at this center. So yes, there is consideration going in, Tamika, about the role of virtual therapy and support. And that's something that's already slated to be a part of this But if there are additional ideas, that might be something to add on. All right, I know we've got another part of the session to go with some breakout rooms. So I'm going to pass it back to Mahal, but not before I just say again how wonderful these youth have been. I know everybody in the chat has been as impressed as I always am with the young people and the recommendations. And I'm sure with the responses to the questions, they've done a lot of hard work and great work. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say is that we talked about the budget piece. And so somebody already mentioned about the county commission and whether this is underfunded. So this is another piece around advocacy that we want to make sure that a set budget doesn't mean that it's set forever. And so we also have the opportunity to advocate to see this full vision come alive that the youth have presented to us. So thanks a lot. Mahal, pass it back to you.
Awesome. Okay, y'all. So what's going to happen next is we wanted to make sure to get the insight from everyone here. I think Crystal said it amazingly when she said, when they said that it isn't only like the young people here have so much insight, so do tons of other people here have different insight. And this is a space where we can kind of bring it together. So we're about to go into breakout rooms. We're going to go into a lot of breakout rooms because there's a lot of us. And we're just going to have 10 minutes for everyone to go around and share your thoughts around these three major questions. So the three major questions are, what next steps do you want to see for the Youth and Family Resource Center? What role do you think the CJJC should have with the Youth and Family Resources Center? And are there any last questions that you want answers to? We want to let y'all know that we will be sharing all of these answers with the administration at the Youth and Family Resource Center, as well as you all will have all of these. And any questions that are listed here, we're going to try to make sure that those get answered by YJAC further down the line. So are there any questions about that? I'm dropping in the chat a document. I just want to make sure everyone can get in there. This is where we're hoping for you to document your own teams. I'm making 13. There are going to be 13 breakout rooms. Please pay attention to which breakout room you go to, because that will be the room that we're hoping for you to go to that slide and keep notes. Are there any questions about that before we get started, y'all? Okay, y'all. I am moving y'all into those rooms now. All you have to do is accept the breakout room that's about to come, and we will be coming back in 10 minutes. Moving y'all into those rooms now. Oh, and when you get in there, y'all, there are instructions on the first slide, but just make sure, choose a note taker, go around, have everyone answer those questions to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. And at the end, make sure the note taker can repeat back and everything is captured. Okay, 10 minutes. See y'all then. And if you're having any trouble moving, just let me know. I will help y'all out. Those who are remaining in here, if you can just, yeah, I know internet's sometimes a little bit slow. Okay, Cardell, are you able to move? Abby, are you able to move?
Oh, this one I moved on my phone.
Oh, okay. Zara, are you able to move?
I just put a message in the chat for you. I'm gonna go pray and be right back.
Beautiful. Sorry, I missed that. to Abby. If anyone's having any trouble moving, just go ahead.